Welcome back to the Coffin Lounge podcast. I'm your host, Vampire Kitten, and I am here with Lord Spaz New HelVenOre. That is a mouthful.
Woohoo! I'm so sorry. My sire did that so many years ago, and
I was just like, let me make sure I get this correct. Thank you for coming on the show today. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And I want to just thank you for taking the time out of your night to speak with me. It is an honor to be on here, Vampire Kitten.
Oh, I appreciate that. So let's get down to this. You are another one of my amazing vampire guests. Would you like to explain a little bit about what you do?
Sure, more than happy to. So, for those that don't know, I am Lord Spaz New HelVenOre. In the past, I was an elder for the very first Gotham Halo in New York City, dating back to my first appearance in 1997 up until 2002. From there, I was an elder for the New Jersey Court of the Iron Garden at that time. In 2004, I became a disc jockey, originally known as DJ Spaz or Spaz Machine at that time. I'm currently known as DJ Triple E in the home state of Texas, in the city of Dallas. What I do currently is I am a host and DJ for the web radio program of Confession, which is every Sunday night from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at deepelmradio.com. You can check it out on Live 365, and you could also check it on the website as well. And from time to time, I participate in a lot of Twitch DJ raids on Twitch.
So I've seen your Sunday show a few times. Love it. So good. And
thank you.
Then let's backtrack a little bit, because I have a lot of like vampire community guests on my show, but I don't think that people quite understand what Gotham means to the vampire community. Could you explain a little bit? Because just assume that our viewers or listeners don't have any idea about any of this stuff. Can you explain a little bit about why the Gothic Halo was so important in the rise of the vampire community?
More than happy to tell you that. The reason why we call it the Gotham Halo initially is because Gotham is another word for New York. New York is where the vampire subculture thrived, and it was where it was in its infancy. So it started back in the 90s with people such as Goddess Rosemary, Father Sebastian, and Michelle Ballinger. So when the community was created, it was created, again, like I said, in the 90s, in the mid-90s. My first initial experience didn't come until 1997. But it is a very important, vital asset to the vampire subculture because that's where it all started. It's where everything began, essentially. Everything from the creation of my sigil, which I like to call the Sabertooth Ankh. Most people now call it the Legacy Ankh, courtesy of Father Sebastian. So a lot of what started in this subculture, not just from New York, but it spread out throughout the United States, even the sister state of New Jersey.
Which is where the Iron Garden is.
That is correct.
Right. Okay. So that actually is very helpful. I feel like we haven't actually discussed, we've had people on the show who are originally from the New York scene and things, but we've never really actually discussed the origin, I guess. It was also predates internet and things, and plus, back then New York had all the club kids and there was a lot going on in different subcultures, and it was really the I want to say mixing pot of really interesting alternative subcultures.
You are absolutely correct, and I'm witness. And I'm a living example of those club kids. I started going to the nightclubs in New York City in 1995, like late 1995. I first started going to the Batcave in New York when it was in its prime with legendary promoter Neville Wells at the helm of it. And also, we had the Bank, which was a long time Goth industrial club. So I got to go to the Bank and the Batcave, and eventually the legendary nightclub, the Pyramid, in Alphabet City, within that same area. Batcave was more like towards where Times Square was. But yes, I am part of that time period, and it was insane. I've got stories up the wazoo, especially how I first got into like my very first goth industrial nightclub, which was the Batcave, and it's crazy. In late 1995, I was with one of my old friends, Michael Stranger. He was a long-haired guy with like a crooked nose, always wore a long black trench coat, obviously wore all black, and carried around a metal cane. Now, Michael used to hand out flyers for the Batcave party in the 90s, and he was very close with Neville Wells. So I never went, and I just wanted to do something on like a Saturday night. And I was hanging with Mike. You know, Mike was like my big brother in a way. And so, mind you, I'm wearing a trench coat, MC like boots, black jeans and everything, black t-shirt. I think I may have had a Misfit shirt on at that time. Still working on like my mohawk, which turned out to be like a long ponytail back then. So we go to the Batcave, and Mike's like, you know, I don't know how I'm going to get you in. I want to try to get you in for free, but we got to come up with a story. And so I said, well, hey, I could say that I'm like the lead singer of a, black metal band called Satan's Helpers, and I'm just there to like check out the space for like a future gig. Now, FYI, I was never part of a band called Satan's Helpers. So we had to come up with that story together. And he's like, I'll let him know, you're wanting to check out the place. I go down to the block. We go see Neville Wells. And Mike has a deep voice, just for record. And he went to Neville and he says, hey, Neville, this is my friend Spaz. He is the lead singer for a band called Satan's Helpers, and he wants to check out the space because he wants to play here someday. Now, Neville is British. So in his heavy British accent, he's like, oh, yeah, cheers, mate. That's great. I'm more than happy to bring him in. Come on in, mate. I'll get you right through the door. He goes upstairs and takes us upstairs, mind you. We're following in front of him. I get to the door, and, it's a female that's, taking money at the door and flyers for that night. He goes, hey, let him in. He's just here to check out the space and the event space. He's all right. He's on me. I'm going to comp him. And, lo and behold, I walk into the Batcave. And at that time, it's 2 levels, mind you. So I go up to the top floor, which was where the industrial party was. It's also where I first experienced the industrial scene in New York City. And they had an event there that was run by a group of women called the Borg. And the Borg was just like its own clique. They had female DJs. They also, I believe, had DJ Hellraver, who turned out to be the guy behind the EBM Agrotech music project Terrafact, for anyone that doesn't know. But at that time, he was known as DJ Ben. So I remember just seeing him spin there as a guest, like, that night. And was in awe, like looking around and seeing my surroundings and seeing all these like dudes with big boots on, mind you. Never saw a pair of Doc Martens until that night. And they were just kicking and stomping. And it was just fascinating. Like I loved it. At that time, you were able to smoke cigarettes in the venue. And I wound up going to the bathroom and smoking cigarettes and hanging out with these people. So that night was memorable because I got to meet, longtime friends that I never thought in my life I would collaborate with in the DJ industry shortly thereafter as years passed on. But that night was pinnacle to being introduced to the goth industrial scene in New York City. And so for 2 years, I was in that party. And then I eventually got to check out the bank. And the bank was a big nightclub in New York back in those days. And that's where I learned to do the industrial stomp. That's where I learned the music. I started to start listening to bands like Night Zareb, Skinny Puppy, classic Front 242, Wax Trax bands like Pygmy Children, Scold, KMFDM, just to kind of name a few. So that scene was very influential in my life. And then from that point on, that's where I started working with other people, just doing remedial jobs, busboy, coat check, for a number of parties at that time. I would say within a year or so, I started handing out flyers for a bar in Lower Manhattan over by NYU, New York University. And it was a place called the Rec Room. It was Sunday nights. They used to have Goth Sundays there. It was run by Kelly Graves. And one of the bouncers was my longtime friend now, and just kind of like a big brother to me, Lord Delchai, which I'll get into because he's part of the vampire history of New York. At that time, I was handing out flyers, and I would hang out with him, and he was the bouncer at that time. And we just struck up a friendship. We got to know each other, and he was kind of like another big brother. Just being the obnoxious, not necessarily obnoxious, but he was smart, kind of sarcastic to me sometimes, but he was never mean to me at all. He started DJing at the Rec Room shortly, within a few months. And, from that point on, his DJ career just kind of took off, and I just started just hanging out at other places. And then we are going to get to 97. 1997 was when I first discovered an inkling of the vampire community in New York.
Right.
So one night, I go to the Pyramid nightclub, which is a legendary nightclub for those that don't know. Bands like Nirvana and Gwar have performed there. And it was also very big for the LGBTQA community at that time because they had parties at that venue for that crowd. And I would always go there on Thursdays for 80s night. The 80s party that used to happen there was called Remission. And Remission was run by New York, New Jersey legendary DJ Ash, one of my favorite DJs at that. And at that time, I went there one night. This was September of 97. And I always got in for free. I always got in before the night ever opened. I was close friends with the sound and lighting guy, longtime friend William Geraldo. And anytime I would go there, he'd let me in. I'd never pay to get in.
That's nice.
Didn't have to yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Never had to get paid to get in there. So I would go in there, and at that time I started painting my face up. So I would go to the bathroom, I would put on makeup. I used eyeliner, pencil. Sometimes I'd use clown white makeup. I go this particular night. I don't know the date specifically because it's been so long, but I knew it was September for sure. I go into the men's room to do my routine. William's setting up, and I see a flyer for the Long Black Veil party at Club Mother.
Wow.
Where it began. And I'm looking at this flyer and I'm going, well, vampires? Really? You gotta be kidding me. This is not real. Mind you, I used to play Vampire the Masquerade 2 or 3 years before that with like all of my friends down at the World Trade Center back when, she was up. But I looked at this flyer. I'm like, I kept it. And I put it in my pocket. I'm like, I got to go check this out. So I didn't check it out that night. I did the following week for sure. So this is where the following week, I got a zip-up hoodie at that time, all black, and I had my makeup, and I had to go check it out. So Club Mother was on 14th Street on Washington Street. It's a legendary nightclub that catered to a huge chunk of the LGBTQA community at that time. And the place was run by Chichi Valenti and Johnny Donnell. And so I remember going there, face painted, mind you, like my makeup for
your goth nights
for record.
Right.
It was like a combination of symmetry and kabuki. I will always do. Mm-hmm. So I was always known for that in New York. So when I go to the doors, and I didn't think they were going to let me in at first because the door people were always dressed to the nine. It was the very first time I met doorman Michael Ford and a very prominent, legendary figure, beloved figure at that in the vampire community, the late Father Vincent Orion.
Right.
He was also at the door doing door duties. They let me in. And when I walked through those doors, Vampire Kitten, I was in awe. I walked through these doors. To my right, as I'm looking straight ahead, to my right, there's the stage. To my left is the DJ booth. And who is DJing that night? Lord Delchai, my friend, my big brother, who never told me he was part of this at all.
What a surprise.
I'm in shock, and I'm looking at the stage,
amazing.
right? I kid you not. I was so shocked. I looked at him like, you're here? You gotta be kidding me. And mind you, at that time, like Delchai knew that I was an industrial kid. Always was. Always will be at heart. And I started like just walking around the room. And I saw someone that I was familiar with during the days where I used to hang out at Washington Square Park. The late Lady Velma. And Velma was such a sweetheart. I gotta tell you, she was one of the people that I really looked up to in that community at that time in my life. I love her, So I got to see her. I didn't recognize, she didn't recognize me, essentially, because, you have all this makeup on. Like,
right.
Nobody's going to really recognize you at all. But I remembered her. And then I walked around, and I got to see, like, the bar area towards, like, as you walk in, there's, like, a corridor to the left, just next to the DJ booth where you go into, like, this really fancy, almost Victorian-looking, like, lounge area where there's a bar, there's bartenders, and you got people dressed to the nines, with some of them were wearing Victorian coats, some of them were wearing glamorous, outfits. And it was just different for me. I'm like, well, I'm not accustomed to this. And at first I felt like a true outsider because I never essentially considered myself a vampire. I always felt that I was my own self-made individual. So walking in there, I almost felt out of place, but people came up to me little by little. They're like, God, I love your face paint. Love your makeup, dude. Looks awesome. And I was kind of taken aback. I'm like, wow, people actually like what I'm wearing. Mind you, at the bank in the Batcave, I was a menace. So having these people like compliment me and just welcome me in, it really started to change my perspective on the community at that time. And from that point on, every week I would go. And before I left that night, Delchai and we chatted for a little bit. He's like, hey, man, if you come here next week, I'll throw down some industrial music for you so you can show them how to do it. And I said,
Heck
yeah,
yeah.
totally. I'm gonna light a fire. You know? So
That's awesome.
I got so inspired that the following week, Belchai curated a industrial music set, and it started with Apoptigma Berserk. It was Love Never Dies, followed by KMFDM, Juke Joint Jezebel, followed by Cubanate Oxyacetylene, and then he would throw in Rammstein's Du Hast.
So you remember
Now,
all of that?
absolutely.
It was probably a pretty pinnacle moment, huh?
Very. Like, that really set things in motion for me as a member of that community. Like, these people didn't know about people that stomped to industrial music. I essentially brought to them the industrial stomp for the first time in that subculture. You know, with face paint and everything,
Right.
long, mohawk down. Like, they've never seen me like they've never really seen a type of person like myself. And so from that point on, I became a fixture of the community. It's where I got to meet a lot of my longtime friends, especially, as I mentioned earlier, the late Father Vincent Orion and my sire, who is also not here with us anymore as well. So that's pretty much where I started in the vampire community. And for a while, that was the status quo for me. I went in there, I hung out, I stomped. And I got to meet people and I got to hang out with people outside of the club shortly after. But lots of crazy stories with that. But I'll definitely say that that's where it all kind of began for me. And when it came to everything else after, so much crazy things had happened from that point on. But I officially became an official member of Clan Sabretooth in 1999. And I had my first set of fangs done by current fangsmith Maven Lore, and who is now in New Orleans doing fangs. But I was his very first prototype when I got my fangs back in 1999. So that was when I really started to get deep into things. And by that point, everybody knew who I was. And I was, honest to God, I was a Ronin. I didn't call myself Vampyre. I was called the entity unto himself. And so that's kind of what started the legend of me. And of course, as time went on, I incorporated masks. So I used to wear a mask, my mask under my face and everything with makeup. So mind you, I had my mask over my face and I had makeup under when I would pull it off. So it was almost like I had two faces.
Now that obviously you're in Texas. So how did you get from the New York scene to the Dallas scene?
So in 2015, I moved to Dallas due to, at the time, I wasn't necessarily part of the scene at that point. Mm-hmm. I was engaged to be married in my mundane life to my now ex-wife. At the beckoning of her parents, we moved from New York to Texas, and most of my time here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, I lived a very mundane life. I had left the community in 2012 due to, things that were happening in my mundane life that needed my immediate attention, but also to kind of get my life back together. Because during that time, between 2012 going up to 2013 was a very dark period in my life, and I had to do a 180. And so leaving New York City after getting myself together, financially, career-minded, and mentally, emotionally, we moved to Dallas, Fort Worth. I spent my time living in like the Fort Worth area, which is Euless. Euless is in Tarrant County, so it's just not far from Fort Worth. I just spent my life just working in the hotel industry as a concierge and, just being a, engaged man at that time. I got married in 2016 in Vegas to my ex-wife, and we just lived together in that area in Tarrant County. No connection really to like my old scene. I lived a very different life at that point. In 2021 was when my ex-wife and I, we amicably divorced. And that was when I got to meet up with one of my old friends from New York City for the first time in like many years. And I stayed with them, and I was just getting my life together at that point. So we were living in a 2-bed, 2-bath unit in the Richardson area of Dallas Fort Worth. And I was just getting my life together, really, just picking up the pieces. That's when, in September of that year, was when I now met my now fiance, Lady Astra O'Malley New HelVenOre. Now, meeting her, I had no idea that it's kind of like the old saying in the mafia, like just when you think you could leave it, they always try to bring you back in no matter what. Now, she did not do this intentionally. She was part of the family lineage that I have known for many years in New York. And when we started talking, I didn't had no idea that she was connected to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was shocking to know that somebody was connected to some of my old friends from up north. I had to tell her who I was. And from that point on, not to make the relationship the basis, of like how we, got together and I, came back to the community, but because I never like to spin it in that way, because I love her for more than just that, of course. But it was the catalyst of me reconnecting with my roots
Right.
and my old friends. And so it took me a long time to come to terms with it, because I had to fix myself before I could do anything. I've always believed in the philosophy of balancing day and night, which is what they call in the Black Veils of the twilight. So you have to have a day in order to have a night. You can't do one and not the other. And
Right.
most of my time in New York before that, I was always at night, never in the day. So I didn't understand that philosophy. But I was also rebellious too, and didn't really pay attention to it. Just a punk kid, really. But as time went on, she helped me to kind of come back a little bit, in a positive way. And I had to let go of any negative thoughts that I had in my mind and in my heart, because the past is the past. And sometimes you just got to move on, you got to refresh, restart, renew. And that's what I did. And little by little, I connected with many of my old friends. And it was the most meaningful thing that I ever did. And it felt so good because honestly, I missed everybody. I missed them all. I shared so many memories with all these people that, I almost cried practically, just, seeing their faces in person for the first time, hugging people for the first time in almost 20 years. Like
Long time.
half of my life was, yeah, it was just, it was wonderful. And I've been thankful for it since then. Because of my fiance, she introduced me to the 501c3 charity organization in Dallas, the Vampire Court of Dallas. She was an ambassador for them since 2017 up until, last year. I started working with them and being a board of directors. one of the board of directors, of course. Um, the focus was charity and just raising funds to do good things and goodwill. And I worked with them for 2 years. I honorably, resigned in 2024 just to focus on other things, especially since at that time my fiance and we started our own vampire house together, and that was very important. The last time I was in a vampire house was in my early 20s, and it was created by my late sire, Lord P.N. de Drennen, who was the Regent Emeritus of the Society Nocturnus of Gotham, when the Court of Gotham changed to that upon his transition to position as Regent. And so, New HelVenOre, the name came from House New HelVenOre, which was my sire, myself, and my beloved vampire brother, Lord Rex Black Email. And so that's pretty much how just coming back into everything started, and just reconnecting with old friends, and just every single night, technically, since then, I've just been catching up with many people. I've been traveling, here and there with my fiance to reconnect with people, and, talking to people about our house and what we've been doing, catching up with old friends I hadn't seen in 20 years, but also introducing her to them, letting them know that she's a big part of my life.
That's amazing.
And I'm thankful. Yeah. So that's really.
House of the Divine Dusk was started. What inspired you to start the house? I also appreciate that it's not just a vampire house, but it's also an otherkin house. That doesn't happen very
That is correct. No. My fiance and I were inspired to create House of the Divine Dusk to not only pay homage to her vampire lineage of House O'Malley, which I have a long history with its founder, my longtime friend, Lord Stephen O'Malley, but also my vampire lineage of House New HelVenOre, which was started by my sire, Lord de Drennen, and of course my older brother Rex in the fold of things. So it was a combination of the two lineages. The inspiration behind it was to bring back a lot of the old traditions while embracing and incorporating the new. Because in Dallas, we have a very diversified scene out here. Mm-hmm. Interestingly, there is no goth, there is no new wave, there is no industrial, there's no EBM labels out here. The music is played, but it's very unified. Really, only aesthetic that you're really going to get out here is fetish. It's right. Predominantly a fetish community. But Dallas is rich in its history, of course, with the church party that has happened for so many years, which resident DJ Joe Virus is very much known for, which he rocks, by the way.
I watch his show too.
He's awesome. I love Joe.
If he's streaming, I usually rate him. Once I'm done.
Yeah, dude.
He's great.
He's worth the rate. Uh-huh. He's so worth the rate, He works so hard. And it was just great to know him. It's great to have him as a friend. My fiance has known him for so long that they actually used to date many, many years ago before I ever came into the state of Texas alone. A little small story about her is a lot of people consider her the goth queen of Dallas. And it's insane because she's, well, for one, not to toot my fiance's horn, but she is so beautiful and she's so graceful. She's such a lady. And her dance moves are just unbelievable. So cool that Madonna, of all people, visited the church party at Swiss Avenue in Deep Ellum. I believe it was with Dennis Rodman that night. She's told me this, and I'm giving her credit for this. I know she's hearing this. Um, Madonna loved her dance moves so much that when Madonna did the music video for Frozen, a lot of those dance moves were derived from my fiance's dance move repertoire. So it was a really cool homage, and it's awesome. They've had a friendship for a long time, both her and Joe, and I love Joe Virus. He's so awesome. Great guy overall. And I'm so happy with his project with Solemn Assembly. But to segue back to the house itself, so we want to embrace, old traditions, but embracing new. We don't want to just bring in people that are just vampire. We also want other kin.
Well, who is welcome in your house, I guess, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Well, people that that consider themselves like vampires, other kin, people that want to essentially be part of a traditional house that are looking to learn about the vampire subculture, that are looking to express themselves through art and philosophy and stoicism. That is essentially what we're about. So, what we're trying to do is we're trying to let people know, hey, you can come out of your shadow. It's okay to be who you are. You have a family that supports you. And we don't just focus on just, the artisan side of things. We also believe in philanthropy. My tongue's all tied here. We do a lot of charity, and fundraising is one of those things that we do. I currently do a multi DJ raid on Twitch. It is the House of the Divine Dusk DJ raid. I started doing this along with one of my longtime friends and collaborator, who is a Twitch moderator in the Twitch community, somebody I've known since New York. We started it over a year ago, and we do these raids to raise funds for, reputable charity organizations such as the Elizabeth Glacier Pediatric AIDS Foundation, the Epilepsy Foundation for Texas, Mental Health America. And we recently not only did one for the New Orleans Vampire Association, but the last one we did was for Amplified Minds here in the Dallas area, which provides free services to those that do not have coverage for mental health awareness and treatments and things like that. And for those that need counseling, for those that are down and out. So our house is about philanthropy, arts. We're just a pure artisan house. We love to share ideas. We want to develop people. We want to help them grow, not just emotionally, but spiritually. And we are elegant. We believe that, elegance is the simplest form. Like simplicity really is the best example of elegance. We feel it's okay to dress up a little bit, I like to dress up whenever I go out because it makes me feel good, We want to get rid of the label that sometimes people have with, people dressing up and being elitist. That's not what we're about. We welcome anyone that wants to get to hang out and learn and talk with us, really. So we're just saying, we're here. It's okay to be what you feel you are. We want to get to know you, and we want to talk. Let's hang. Let's grow.
Right.
So community is the main basis for what we're doing. We're trying to build a community, in a sense.
Okay. So, sorry, I'm trying to collect my thoughts here a little bit. You said so much stuff that I'm like, oh, I want to talk about it, and now I'm like, what do I talk about first? So your let's go back to DJing, because so when you went to Texas, did you start DJing before or after you moved to Texas?
So when I moved to Texas, I was doing web radio for Radio Pure Gently, based out of the UK.
Okay.
And for a time, I used to do my own web radio program through Radio Pure Gently called Outscape. Outscape was purely synthwave, retrowave, dark wave. And I would do 2 hours worth of programming and talk about the artists in between sets. With Radio Pure Gently, essentially not just doing Outscape, but I used to do a weekly program with the other broadcasters where I would spin 80s new wave. So I did that for, a couple of years in Dallas from 2015 to 2017. So I worked with them for a while. I stopped spinning for a while in 2017 due to traveling abroad with my then wife, now ex-wife. We traveled to Australia in 2017 as a bucket list trip. We got to see Sydney, we got to see Ayers Rock, and we got to check out Cairns and the Great Barrier Reef in that visit. Once we got back after like almost a couple weeks, we had to kind of take a chill pill. Still busy with work at that time. We went to Tokyo the next year after.
I was like, I thought it was like you rolled right from Sydney into Tokyo. I was like, oh, that's not a chill pill. What do you mean?
I wish. If only I had the funds to do that. But no, we went to Tokyo like the following year. My best friend is actually Japanese, and he is a business owner in the outskirts of Tokyo. And so the purpose of the trip was to go climb Mount Fuji, which we did. And I got to visit him and his family. The last time I spun was that night, essentially. It was the very last time I spun music for anyone, really, whether it be web radio or live in person. On my 40th birthday in Tokyo, Japan, I spun at the Japanese traditional instrumental bar and lounge. It was called Rugyu. Rugyu in Japanese means Dragon Palace. My best friend owns that bar and lounge. He is a very well-known Japanese musician, an artist, and child actor in Japan. He had one of the credits that he has is that he worked with the guy who played Satuichi, which was the blind swordsman in those days. So for my 40th birthday, I spun on stage with everybody in tow, and I got to do a live set with a kimono on, and it was the very last time I spun at all in general. I didn't spin again until 2021 when I started doing a gig in Dallas over at Reno's Chop Shop, which was like a biker bar, saloon. Really cool place, too, if you like, rock and roll and metal and bikers and stuff. It's in the Deep Ellum area. I started DJing for a promoter at the time, and we did a party called Forbidden. Now, if you notice the wording, Forbidden is not forbidden. It was Forbidden, and it was vampire themed, mind you, but little did they know that I actually had history with that community from up north. But, I didn't say anything at that time, but I was the main DJ and I spun that night. And, we started doing parties there shortly after. After a while, because of work, I didn't do anything with Reno, so I kind of had to take a step back and not really do any gigs for a while. I didn't really start kicking back up anything until 2023. Actually, no, I take that back. 2022 was when I started with Deep Ellum Radio, which is now where I'm at. I did my program called Confession, and it was a set that I'd done, every Sunday night, spinning and playing tunes and talking about stuff. For a while, I stopped doing it around like mid 2023 just because work was kind of in the way at that time. So it was really hard to kind of balance the work and the DJ aspect. And also at that time working with the Vampire Court of Dallas. So officially came back to Deep Ellum Radio in late 2024. And I'm now back with them since late 2024, December. So between mid 2023 and up until now, I focused on Twitch raids and doing Twitch gigs with friends. So that's pretty much where it's now at this moment, where if I have the time, I do the Twitch DJ sets for different raids, but my Sundays are now back up to where they were. So that's where we are now. I know it's kind of like
no, that's good. You couldn't escape, could you? You just it was a cycle.
Well,
it was a hey, Gotham, let's take a little break and then start back up for almost all of it, actually.
No, and that's the thing. It's funny you mentioned that because I felt that most of my time in the nightlife was always a journey from one place to another. And the great thing about being a traveler, in a sense, is that I got to learn many things. Mm-hmm. So inspiration brings you places, I guess.
So I also wanted to mention, because I remember what I was going to say, I love how much you love your fiance. Can I just say it's very sweet?
Oh, I absolutely do.
I love
She's not paying me to tell you that, by the way.
No, the way you talk about her, I'm like, oh, it's so cute.
Well, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
But you could tell you are so in love, and I love that. I love that.
I'm humbled, honestly. Like, I'm humbled. I'm humble because I have somebody that understands me, that understands my past, that understands that I have a lot to learn. Like, as an entity unto themselves, you know, I got to learn from a lot of people, but she's been my best teacher so far, no matter how stubborn I sometimes get. But at the end of the day, you know, I give my kudos and my credit where it's really due. And again, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I would have never came back, really. Like, my journey has just been, it's been very interesting. There's been a lot of sad moments. There's been a lot of great moments. Like, this community, the history that I have with them, it's like I have a big family that I missed out and love so much, you know? I don't think about the negative anymore. My heart is just, I'm about community. I'm about camaraderie. I'm about pure love because, you know, negativity just has no place. You know, we're all going to agree to disagree, but, you know, we're going to grow if we learn to work together. We're going to set better examples for the community that people can say, hey, man, you know, I want to hang out with that. I want to rock some things. I want to put some contacts on. That's okay. We're saying that's cool. Like, put on your devil horns. Put on your rabbit ears.
Whatever makes you happy. Whatever floats your boat. As long as you're not hurting other people, do whatever you want that makes you happy. That is, I'm a big supporter of that. Like, if you...
Thank you.
Yeah. That's so important. There are some things that going back to vampire community history, there's some rough edges. There's no lies there. However, I think it's important to realize that people do grow, and there are a lot of community members that I have seen grow. I have grown. I took a hiatus for a very, very long time, and this is my contribution to community to the best of my ability.
That's awesome.
I don't want to be part of a house. I don't want to be teaching. I don't want any of that. I want people to be able to tell their stories in a positive way. And I want other people who aren't part of those communities to understand that people in these communities are actually pretty cool. They're really interesting, and there is a great sense of community. I think when we kind of look back at things, we need to understand that there was always a beginning. There's always going to be growth, and there's always going to be butting heads. And people
Yeah.
may change over time. People may have a change of heart. They may have had ideas in the past that maybe they don't agree with now. But at the end of the day, I feel like if people are growing, then we shouldn't fault
Yeah.
them for things that happened in the past. So you
I
and
absolutely
me and
agree.
a lot of us letting go of old past situations that we don't necessarily think were great for, I'm sure, our own personal lives or whatever. Growth is so important, and I think discussing that and knowing and being self-aware that, hey, maybe I wasn't super great back then, is really important for the community. And I think that's a lesson that is probably should be taught most, because sometimes people, they hang on to that stuff, and like, we just need to let it go and move on,
I
move forward.
absolutely agree. Like, right. There's nothing wrong with taking accountability. Just take the accountability, do better, because we're not perfect, but we grow together, just like you stated before. Everything you said, this is what I've always professed, I've always believed in. It's been my moral code of the vampire community from my very first appearance in my own infancy in the community to where I am now. I have stories. I'm going to give you a couple of stories because I really wanted to share this with you
Okay.
because you're honestly like when I was sired by my late sire, Lord and the Decadence, um, it meant a lot to me because I was in my early 20s. I thought that I knew everything. Sometimes you're going to get big for your britches when you're somebody that everybody knows. But what a lot of people didn't know, and I wanted to share this with you and everyone listening in and tuning in, is that my friendship and relationship as a father son deal with my late sire, it was very important to me because when I first met him, D was very self-made. He was a self-made, like, Renaissance man. The guy, let me tell you, he was the mental manipulator. And when I say he was the mental manipulator, he made art out of metal. He didn't go to a school to learn this stuff. He taught himself how to make this stuff. He was inspired by medieval Europe, African art and culture, science fiction, his spirituality based on the Elven Star, just the heptagram, I believe. And he also was a huge fan of Axel. Remember Axel, the guy that used to make all of his like metal like long rings?
That sounds familiar. I'm gonna probably have to do
Well,
some. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. It sounds familiar.
I totally recommend you check him out. Axel, back in the 90s, was a guy, an older guy, who used to make his own jewelry, his own rings. And a lot of his rings were like
Were they the
claws.
the metal? Yeah, the full finger rings.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, yes, I know who this is now. Now that I've looked him up, I understand.
Yeah. So D was inspired by Axel too. So D made customized metal canes, made customized jewelry, and officially he was commissioned to make this Ankh. Not this one specifically, but many in the 90s
Right.
through Clan Sabretooth in its infancy. He was commissioned to make the Ankh, the Sabretooth Ankh, the Sanguine Ankh, I guess. Well, Sabretooth Ankh. I prefer to call it the Sabretooth Ankh. People consider it the Legacy Ankh. He handmade this. He was commissioned to do that. And when I got to know him growing up, when I was 19 in that community, he was was like a shadow almost. Like he would hang out on the wall at Club Mother. He'd have his cane, and he would just lounge in the wall, just watch. And he would have a glass of a bloodbath. Now, he would just hang out there and be his own person, just relaxing and everything. But he always kind of kept to himself. You didn't know what he was thinking. He was just mysterious in that way. He was so majestic. His presence was just so welcoming. And when he got to know you and he really cared about you, his friendship was very valuable. He was a very fierce protector. And meeting him was almost like kind of looking at myself a little bit. Now, mind you, I am not a metal sculptor, first and foremost. That was all him. I just used to paint my face up, rock a mask, and I took over your dance floor when Del Chai was spinning. And D would just hang out and do his thing. But we kind of had a lot of similarities because we were both individualistic. We didn't come from anywhere. Nobody sired us. We were essentially our own entities unto ourselves. And he was so much like that. He was just a beautiful human being. And when I got to know him, like, I felt like I was being taught how to be kind of like a soldier, because what a lot of people didn't know was that he was indeed a soldier. He was a sergeant in the Coast Guard and in the Navy. Well, actually, no, not the Navy, the Army. So Army, Coast Guard. He was a sarge. So he had natural leadership, ability, material. He was a natural born leader, really. And so I looked up to him like a mentor. I looked up to him like, a dad in a way. And getting to know him and working with him closely when he became regent, to me was a burden at first, because being aligned with him meant that I had a responsibility to not only myself, but to my sire and to my brother Rex, who was along the trip, along the way. And again, I want to say this, if it wasn't for Rex, I wouldn't have traveled to the many places that we've gone to catch up with D. I love my brother for that, always will. And I know he'll hear this, but D meant the world to me. He was like my dad. He's the dad I always wanted. When he sadly took his life on Valentine's Day in 2005, one of the last times I saw him before that was when I visited Gotham, court. And at that time, I was living in New Jersey, and I, stopped talking with him for a while because I left Gotham to go to Jersey to go spend time with the industrial scene, but also hanging out with the vampire community there because I wanted to just do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, kind of marched to the beat of my own drum at that point in my life. And he understood. He never disowned me or anything like that. I saw him in 2004, and I did not know that it was the last time I was going to see him. He said to me as he put his arm around me, he's like, you always have a home to come back to whenever you're ready. And at first I understood, but I didn't necessarily understand the depth of it.
Right.
And so when he passed, for 19 years of my life until now, it hasn't really been the same. And it was one of the things that has brought so much sorrow because I loved him very much. And when people, who are loved that go away that way, it's heartbreaking. You want to make sure that the next person next to you that you care about and just be like, hey, man, it's going to be all right. Like, you can get the help you need if you need it, There's no need to try to solve it on your own. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Nobody knew. And so when he went away, I eventually started, working with the late Father Vincent Orion. Father Vincent was another pivotal figure in my life. We were working together when he started up the Dark Water Tuesday bar night, where I got to spin for him as a resident DJ, along with other DJs that have come and gone. So, working with Vincent, I've had that close friendship with him because he knew me since my, beginning of my days in Gotham. And so, when I stopped talking with Vincent after I left the community altogether in 2012, I cut off a lot of people, and he was one of them, sadly. I don't think he would have been able to help me in the situation that I was in at that time. I wanted to not tell people about my problem. I wanted to handle it on my own as an adult. And I did. But when I saw him for the first time in 2021, I humbled myself and I said, I'm sorry that I left. I love you. And I've never forgotten what you've done for me because he's done so many great things for me in my life when I worked with him. And I was out of the politics at that time anyway, when I worked with him. I wanted to focus on being a DJ. So he had passed on, it was a very sorrowful time, but I'm so glad I got to see him. So doing the house, being part of the community, feeling the way I do, and everything that you have echoed is the reason why I'm here.
Do you feel under some obligation to give back because of what they did for you?
Not just what they did for me, but what they did for our community.
Right.
The leadership that they've shared, the love that they've given, the inspiration that they've given us. Yes, I absolutely feel obligated to do it, not for my own personal reasons, but that's what they would have wanted.
Right.
And that, I'm sure, what they would have wanted of me. And something that my fiance also believes in too. This is something that House of the Divine Dusk as a whole believes in, not just carrying on what they wanted, but what we want to do with those lessons.
Moving forward, right? I like that. That's a really good way of looking at things.
That's the truth.
I know you mentioned the politics. Politics have always been complicated and kind of unnecessary. Yeah. And I think that going into it with the concept of what you want to do and being a positive force on the greater community is actually awesome. I mean, I think that's great. A lot of people want to have a house because they want to be in charge. So it's kind of a breath of fresh air. I mean, houses are great, right? You have a sense of learning, you have a sense of all this other stuff, but that information is out there at this point. What do you do past the point of the information, right? Help out? And I think it's incredibly noble that is the direction that you are going, because that's hard, especially nonprofits.
It is a hard
and fundraising, and that's incredible. I'm gonna make sure that everybody knows about your Twitch raids, your Twitch raids, because that's the majority of where you do your fundraising and things, right? Okay, so we'll make sure that is in the links below.
Yes.
Because that is a very important thing.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. I was going to say, we don't have a dedicated link to it. I have a Discord channel that I just use for specific DJs that I work with and moderators that I work with. So whenever I promote it, it's actually a Facebook event. Okay. I do it from, our House of the Divine Dusk Facebook page. We also share information about it on Instagram. But what we're doing is giving back. We're saying this is the way to go. And this is what we're about. We're not making profits off of this. I'm certainly not doing this for my ego. I'm doing this because it's coming from the heart. It's philanthropy. Philanthropy is an important part of our vampire community. It truly is.
Right.
And it's something that I believe in. I want to give back, but not to satisfy my reputation or anything. No, it's from my blackest entity unto themselves heart, really. It's genuine. It's absolutely genuine. And mind you, it's not just geared just to the vampire community. It's for anybody that's in any subculture. You could be punk rock and you could check it out. You could be a new waver. You could be normal, whatever normal is at this point in this society, really.
Who
You
knows?
know, you could be whatever it is. You could check it out. Like, just because it's being run by a vampire and other kin house doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be relegated to that label. Anybody can. It's worldwide. The DJs that I get, along with my colleague that I work with, who is a Twitch moderator, we get DJs not just from the United States. We get them from South America. We've got them from Canada. We got them from the UK. We got them in like Germany. Well, Germany, of course. We got them from Australia, you know? We got them from so many different parts of the world. I haven't gotten Japan yet. I'm working on that. But it's worldwide. It's not local. Like, yeah, you have local in the United States, but it's worldwide, man. Like, we're catering to the world, not just one secular, community.
Right.
It's all. So yeah.
What are your plans for the future? Do you have like big if you could continue doing this and you could fundraise for, I don't know, some big charity, or do you have like an idea, a concept, something that you are working towards? What are your goals?
Well, there are goals that my fiance and I do have for Dallas as a scene. We definitely want to work on getting a ball together, an actual like vampire and otherkin ball in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually a noir salon where people can come and share ideas, whereas we teach them about a little bit of history, a little bit of philosophy. We want to have guest speakers that come in. We want to have poets, spoken word, and the list goes on and on. Like, we want to showcase art as a whole. We want to showcase philosophy. We want to show stoicism and any kind of spirituality, really. We want to welcome all that. We want to say that the vampire community that people may hear about is not exactly what you may think it is. It's a lot deeper than one realizes if you go deeper down the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to learn, but most importantly, growth. So yes, we definitely want to do a ball in the future. We want to do a noir salon. And I'm going to still do these raids because to me, it brings me happiness. It brings me, a great deal of purpose. And there's no limit of amount of money that we, want to raise. I mean, it's open. If you have the heart and the decency to create, to contribute really to the cause, it's open for you. Nobody's forced you to like donate. It's there. There's no limit of how much we want to raise. It's open. There's a QR code. There's a donation link. Go on and check it out and support these awesome DJs because they rock. And I take part of it. I like to throw my set in and I like to spin, and sometimes I'll talk while I spin. But as of right now, we're currently working on our big event in September in Dallas. It is called Crimson Decadence. It's Panopticon, which is a long time, Dallas staple. It's been around for 15 years. It's an awesome party that's run by DJs Lord Byron, DJ Son of Sam, and DJ Red Vamp. They're teaming up with House of the Divine Dusk to bring 6 DJs, performances, and a high-end latex fetish fashion show, September 19th at Santa Herman Hall. It's a celebration of the vampire and other kin subculture. It's also our way of saying House of the Divine Dusk is here in Dallas, and we are real, and we're here. We've been here 2 years. On down and party with us, check out some awesome music, have a great time, and meet people, get to talk to people, make friends, but most importantly, have a great time. Because I have to MC that night, of course. And I also have to DJ. Aside from the Panopticon DJs that we're having, I'm flying in DJ Julian Black from Colorado, who runs the Arcane Vampire Ball in Denver. He's a young, awesome DJ. I've also got DJ Jay Sustain, one of my good buddies. He is the music director of KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas. He is like one of the best DJs in this scene. As you can see, like Dallas has just a beautiful, homegrown, like heartfelt family feel here. Like we're all united. We are all working together. And with Julian coming in, it's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to that.
The majority of the alternative music or goth music, industrial, whatever I listen to on Twitch is usually based out of Dallas or Los Angeles. So it's one of the two. But yeah, I think that's pretty cool that you guys have that going on. We'll also make I'll throw that in the description too, so if people are interested, I one of these days, when and if I ever truly get any sort of income coming in from this show, I would love to start actually going to some of these salons, like, because I know there's the Vampire Symposium in Florida. I would like to check out the Arcane events. I would love to go to some more house oriented stuff. It's just, time and money, of course, but I think it would be super cool to maybe like go on a tour and just like see all of these things and see what people have to say. I think it'd be awesome to just kind of like go and check out the programming. And I think it's fascinating that you are going to do a salon, because that's a lot of work, plus getting a lot of guests in.
That is the goal.
Yeah, so good luck to you on that. I think I would love to hear that you have one coming up.
Well, if I do, and not me, because it's not necessarily about me. I'm going to humble myself and say that it's up to my fiance and I, because she works as hard as anyone, and I can't take all the credit in the world. It's like they say, behind a good man is a great woman, and she is a great woman. She's worked so hard on getting this event together in September. And so, in general, she's my rock. And I'm not just saying that. So it's not about me. It's been about me for so many years. Yes, today is definitely about me and other things, but I am humble. My fiance is my world, and she has all the credit that she deserves, really. And when it comes to that Vampire Symposium, I got to tell you, I'm very proud of Miguel. I've known Miguel many years.
Wonderful person. I had him on the show really early on. I'd love to have him back at some point, because he is fascinating.
Yeah, he's something. You want it? I got a story about Miguel if you got some time.
I do. Let's go.
A long time ago, when I was in Gotham, I actually used to go to the Realm of Darkness parties in Harlem, in Spanish Harlem, of course. And Miguel, yes, was part of Hidden Shadows. And I remember, knowing him throughout that time. One night, and I have pictures of this. It was so awesome, and my sire had part of it, and I didn't even know about it. I went to the party one night in Harlem, and he had this like dance competition that was going on, mind you. I'll never forget it. I had a mask on. I had no face paint or anything, but I just had my mask. And I danced to like 2 songs at that time. It was By God 20 Like a Prayer and Rammstein, Du Hast, because everybody in that scene loved Du Hast.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm stomping. I had this like mime mask that I designed with conduits and it had some lights that would light up. So when I hit my chest, the lights would like go according to how hard I hit my chest.
That's cool.
I made it myself, just self-taught it. And I had no idea that that night they had a handmade crown, a beautiful metal handmade crown that my sire had made. And Miguel presented that to me, and so did my sire. And it was the bestest memory that I ever had in my life. And I'm so thankful. I'm so heartbroken that I lost that freaking thing so many years ago. I'll show you, but I've got pictures. And Miguel ran that thing, and I never felt so elated in my life. Like memories like that, you just don't forget. And I'm so glad that Miguel was part of it. I am so thankful for him and my sire. It's one of the coolest stories I've ever had to share, and thankful overall. And I'm glad he's rocking out in Florida with that symposium. He deserves
so
all
much. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Love that.
He's very sweet. And honestly, he's another one of those that I'm like, oh, look at you doing all this stuff for the community. That's awesome. It's been a really interesting shift of people. I took a little bit of a hiatus myself. I kind of removed myself from the community when I met my ex-husband. So I sort of and well, the TLDR, the too long didn't read, is that I also didn't know what I was doing with my life. So I'm like, all right, let me just try to figure out what I'm going to do with my career and my life. And I don't know what I'm going to do moving forward, but like, let me remove myself. I started in the community really young, probably before I should have. But I mean, it was kind of on the down low when I just, would ask questions and just stayed out of everybody's way. But I mean, I was really young, and, it was new for me, and I was isolated, and I didn't know what was going on. And I hung out in a lot of web forums and role play groups and all this stuff until I finally found the community. So I was in it for a really long time, and I was writing resources and things like that no longer exist, and I don't think are very valid anyway. Going back and probably thinking about what I wrote is probably, to be fair, probably dog shit. But, it was a long time ago. So, like, going back now and realizing, like, I'm glad that I took the step away to kind of figure out what I wanted to do and who I was as a person, mentally, physically, spiritually, all of that stuff. And then I met my ex. We were together for 10 years. We split amicably as well. We're still friends, but we weren't on the same path. And my current partner, who I adore him, almost like the way you're talking about your fiance, I adore him the same way. He is an incredible human being, and he is extremely supportive in the things that I do and what I've been doing here because I'm in Kansas City, so I'm new to this whole realm out here. There isn't a big vampire community out here. There's kind of a lot of drama that I stay out of, but like the alternative scenes and stuff, they're still new, and they're still trying to figure out what they're trying to do. Because I'm originally from Los Angeles, so that's my realm versus coming out here where they're still trying to develop what they're doing. So I've been personally doing a lot of events and things and starting to kind of like grow things, and I think it'd be really cool to eventually at some point have some sort of salon that would be like a spiritual one, because it's kind of hard to do just like a vampire one, because I don't think there are a lot of them out here, and they're all very isolated. So
it's funny you mentioned. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. So that's kind of like, I want to do things, and I have been slowly doing more like witchy things in a very religious space. But, it's growing, and people seem to be interested in what I'm doing, and I kind of love that, But
I think that's awesome that you're doing that.
Yeah. So I totally understand what you like, the want and the need for something, but also kind of making it work for where you're at.
Well, that's the tricky part, is that a lot of the opinions of the vampire community out here in Dallas was somewhat negative for a while. So trying along with my fiance to make it like not negative at all.
Right.
No, in fact, we're just saying to people like, don't read about what you read from somebody that's saying something that doesn't necessarily apply. It's not all like that. Trust us.
The,
Tell you.
the thing
I
is,
got an open heart, you know?
people will always, the loudest ones, the people that make the most noise aren't necessarily what everybody follows. And that's in any community. That's in Christianity, Catholicism, Satanism. That's any community. The loudest
I
mouths
agree.
and that make the most noise are what people see as a representation of those communities. So I feel like it's
Thank
kind
you.
of up to, no, it's absolutely true. I feel like it's up to
Thank you.
people who are trying to create a different space to go, okay, well, let's take a step back. Let's not assume everything's the same because it's hard. And going back to vampire politics and everything else. And to look at things with an open mind, I think, is probably the most important thing that anybody can do in their lives. That's with any spirituality or religion or anything. So,
I absolutely agree. For me, I've always been in philosophical ways. I've always felt like I was not only a shadow, but a chameleon. I could blend into places if need be. And I was always observant. I don't talk a whole lot when I'm on social media. I just prefer to promote, my weekly online gig that I
right.
do with Deep Ellum Radio. I'll promote the stream with Twitch whenever we get the next one up and running in May. And we're just spreading the word about our event in September of this year over at Sons of Herman Hall. But aside from that, I like to post art. I don't like to talk a whole lot. In fact, truth be told, I'm introverted by nature, really. I've been introverted for a long time. When I get to know people and I get to make, friendships, oh yeah, I'll definitely chat with you. But most of the time, I'm very introverted. My fiance is the extrovert between the two of us. I am very like laid back, but I observe, I watch, I listen. And every time I do that, she likes to, say, you're kind of like a dragon. Like you don't necessarily go out and do what you have to do, but when you do, your fire is felt in that
Mhm.
sort of way.
That's cute.
But no, I'm an observant person. Like I love to pay attention. I love to read when I can. I love to listen when I can, but I observe. And so that's why I don't like to make loud noises or anything like that. I just like to focus on the good things, the positive things as best as possible.
So,
And yeah,
this is a great opportunity to ask you, do you have any
man,
messages for our viewers and listeners?
I absolutely do. Um, One of the things that I want to say is when I became a DJ in 2004, I became a DJ because I almost lost my life in December 2003. When I became a DJ, I got to work with some of the greatest people that I've made as friends. Without those DJs, I wouldn't be where I am today. I'm going to give credit to DJ Delchai, my longtime friend DJ Jason, DJ Ian Ford, DJ Father Jeff. When it comes to the Dallas area, all those DJs, including Joe Virus, you guys rock. Thank you for believing in me. To my family and friends in the vampire community in New York, love you all. I'm so glad I got to see you guys. For anyone that I may have missed out in my time away in my coffin before I rose up, thank you for not forgetting about me because I certainly didn't forget about you. And to my direct family, House of the Divine Dusk, your patriarch loves you all very much. And your matriarch especially does too. And family is always paramount. And to anybody else that I had missed out in my life, I love you all. And I'm so glad that I'm telling you my story because it's so long overdue. And the memories, they are here, they're there. I never forgot. And I have you to thank for that. And lastly, to you, Vampire Kitten,
Oh,
thank you for taking the time to really hear me out and talking and just sharing that information with you. And to the viewers out there, thank you. Thank you all. Really.
and with that, I appreciate it. First of all, I'm always thankful to everybody that comes on this show because I just love hearing everybody's stories, and everybody is so different and unique, and I think that is important to share. And people need to know that, like, this community, whether it's the pagan community, whether it's the vampire community, whether it's the other community, whether it is the Satanists, whatever you represent spiritually or whatever you believe in, or if you're a goth, if you're a punk, if you're industrial, if you're whatever. I just want people to understand that I am attempting to give those groups and communities a platform so people can understand we are not so scary at all.
No,
They're some of the nicest people I've ever
no,
met in these communities.
absolutely. And I'm proud to have been part of that history, not just in New York, not just in New Jersey. Anywhere I've gone, I've made friends and I've made family there. I'm thankful for it all. And I'm most certainly thankful for Dallas and the Dallas scene as a whole. So, yeah, definitely are right on that for sure.
Thank you for coming on the Coffin Lounge today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And I just want to lastly say to my family, quick, divine we are, we rise. To my friends and family in New York, to hell with the region. He's still undead. And thank you. I love you all.
Thank you for listening to the Coffin Lounge podcast. You can subscribe on anywhere podcasts are syndicated, iTunes, Spotify. I'm on YouTube with some video if you're not watching us there. Have a great rest of your night.